let's talk about the strategies of how men can do this, both in their relationships with their wives and with their kids, or in any situation where they're at home. What advice can you give men on structuring the question and how to be an active listener? Right. So let's get into that. Drew, let me just stick with you. And what's your gut reaction to that?
Well, as you were saying that, I was thinking, when you ask a question, ask it honestly and in a way where you don't know the answer. You're not expecting the answer. A lot of smart guys, they like to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. And that works in some places. But in your relationship where the listening is actually the glue that holds you together, you have to be willing to really deeply be present in that moment with your spouse or your children. And you have to allow for whatever comes up is real for them. And to see that and to validate that. And so before I come into a conversation where I really want to connect with my wife or my kids, I kind of get myself set. I create a mindset for myself, which is going to be like, listen, if you want to connect here, you got to create some intentionality and some safety in this conversation. So get your mind right and ask them a question with the intention of really caring about what the answer is. And the difference between that and, more of an autopilot kind of like, how was your day? Or a question is a throwaway question is completely different. People I know the difference. My family can feel my presence. When I'm intentional with them and I ask them a question that I really want to know the answer to, so for me, it's about getting myself set before I have the conversation.
What does that look like? How do you do that?
Well, it's been a long journey. Because so often we're in these quick back and forth, sometimes, it looks like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not bickering, but I've lost the word. Anyway, so it's been a long journey for me to get to the point of being really self-aware in my life. And so there's nowhere where I want to be more self-aware than at home and with the people that I love the most. So I studied a long time and worked a long time on becoming really aware of myself in the present moment, and to also create this idea that home is this refuge where we are all going to be really present. I'm going to lead by example in that regard. And we're going to really care about each other and what everyone's thinking and feeling. And it creates a really nice, safe, nurturing, peaceful kind of vibe at home.
Drew, I just want to expand on that for just a second, because years ago, I had read a book called How to Remember Every Name Every Time. And it was, there's a lot of strategies on how to remember people's names when you meet them, because it's so common for people to say, I'm terrible with names. And there are real techniques and strategies that people use to memorize all sorts of things. But there's also one strategy, which is just care, right? And it's hard. It sounds so simple, but it's like, you really have to care. Like when they say their name, you really have to be listening and caring about their name, because there's not a technique or a strategy behind that. It's just being fully present. And somebody says, well, what does that mean? Or how does that look? And sometimes I think it's like when I met my wife and I knew that she was the one, that was the indicator that we were supposed to be married. And somebody would say, then later, knowing that I had been happily married, they would say, oh, I'm dating this girl. How do you know when she's the one? And you go, when you don't have to ask that question.
Yeah.
That's my answer, right? And it's kind of like that with presence, where, if you have to ask if you're fully present, you're probably not there. And
yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. And I could add something. There are some strategies that I studied myself and I teach, which is it's embodied presence, right? So if my body's not here, and if I can't feel my body, and I don't know what's happening in my body, I'm not in the room. I'm in my head, maybe I'm thinking about somewhere else, but if I can feel myself and I can feel present and I can feel grounded, I know where my feet are, I know what my belly and my chest feels like, I'm in there. So there are things you can actually do aside from caring, but caring's huge. It's a great starting place, but there are actually some strategies, including these embodied self-awareness exercises. And also something I used to do was when I was learning self-awareness, I'd set an alarm on my phone, like for every 30 minutes to check in with myself and see how I'm doing, like seeing what's going on with me and get present and retrain myself to come back to the present, to my body and to myself. And so now when I'm with people, like I'm with you, I'm like dead centered, you know, focused on you. And I didn't have that before. I was kind of floating around, not really paying attention to the people that I was with.
Yeah. It reminds me of Leo Tolstoy's 3 Questions. Have you ever read that book? That he's got a children's book. It's really powerful. It's like, who's the most important person? When is the most important time? And what's the most important thing to be doing? And oftentimes it's like the most important person is the one you're with. The most important moment is now. And the most important thing to be doing is serving in the moment, you know, and giving what you can in that space. So I love that.